So let me say first off with Forms. So Forms is a really great tool. It's really easy to use, and it's somewhat sophisticated. But I wouldn't want you, I wouldn't want you to think that this is going to somehow replace, be a survey tool for you for research. If you're into kind of a survey methodology, you're really going to want to learn something like Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey. Qualtrics is really the best because we have a license here on campus for it. It's super elaborate and can really do all the things that you would need to do as a researcher in terms of maintaining anonymity of things. If you want to do branching of the forms, something more sophisticated, you're going to want to use something like Qualtrics. That being said, Google Forms itself is actually pretty powerful. And so I'm going to show you a few things with at least getting started with it. How many people have used Google Forms before? Just a couple? Okay. Recently? So it's got a new interface now to it. So the way we start with a form, it's somewhat hidden now. You want to go into Google Drive. You start at Drive, and you'll do a new. And under More, you're going to see Google Forms. And that's going to bring up a brand new one, something like this. And I actually have one started, so I'm going to actually go back to here, and I'm going to open up the one I started yesterday. So it's kind of this WYSIWYG. Do people know what WYSIWYG is anymore? You remember WYSIWYG? WYSIWYG dates you a little bit. So what you see is what you get, which in the old WordPerfect days when you actually had a text interface, you couldn't see the font changes and that. And it was a big thing to go to WYSIWYG where you'd actually see the fonts that you're actually using. This is WYSIWYG in the sense that your development interface looks a lot like what the final form is going to look like, which is really, really pretty nice. This is actually the development, even though it looks like I'm into a form right away. You see you'll have all sorts of options on the side over here. If you've used this in the past, if you have forms that were done on the old format, they're still in there in the new forms. They just updated everything. The other thing that used to be the case with the old forms, as soon as you started one, it created a spreadsheet by default where all your responses would get collected. This one doesn't do that by default. It'll ask you if you want to create one. You certainly can, but it doesn't do it by default. There's also now the capability to actually share a questionnaire. So if I want to work on developing this with somebody else, I can share it. You couldn't do that in the old forms. Similar to what you can do with Google Docs and stuff, where you can share the form with other people. Okay, so to add questions, you've got a plus over here, and you have all sorts of options for different types of questions. Of course, the standard multiple choice, checkboxes, drop down. So these are all going to be lists of things. You can also do a paragraph or a short answer. One word of caution with this, you can of course change these pretty easily too. So I go back to this section here, my favorite color. I found out the hard way that if you change this, you can change it in any of these options in here, but if you change it to this one or this one accidentally, you're going to lose all of your options. So be careful about changing your types. But again, pretty straightforward. Add or delete options. Let's see, what other question types do we have? Okay, so and then there's a linear scale and a multiple choice grid. So this one's a little bit different. Here's an example of a grid-based one. So basically, it's going to look like a table. So you're going to have your questions on the left and in the first column, and then you want whatever the other columns are going to be. So it might be a Likert scale type of option. Might be other options, but this one's one that isn't as WYSIWYG right here. And of course, you can add some date-based questions and time-based questions. So that's really about it. Then if you want to see the actual questions, actually we should go through, we can talk about themes a little bit. So you can adjust, I have kind of a plain theme here, but you can pretty simply change to something a little more rebel, red. It's also got some more elaborate ones. It didn't have much very academic, unfortunately, in the options here. By academic, I mean like dry. So there's the themes. Let's see, more options here. We can do a preview, but again, it looks pretty much like, whoa, that doesn't look right. Oh, it's previewing the theme, apparently. That's not my full questionnaire. Okay, we'll hold off on sending that one out here. And then let's see, more options here. This is really slick too, and I don't remember if they had this option before in the previous version, and you can do this with anything in the Google Apps area, and that is you can restrict who can deal with this. And it's really nice to be able to do some things that are only within that particular domain. So, Chinam, how does it, so faculty and staff have UNLV.edu accounts. Students initially had UNLV.nevada.edu. Is that still the case? They're all going to be... I know some students do.
Some GAs have both.
If they're a graduate assistant, okay. The reason that's important is if you use, let's say you have something you want just for students, so you can restrict it to anyone in, and it'll say University of Nevada, Las Vegas, but it depends on your account. So if you're using a UNLV.nevada.edu account, that means anybody who has that type of account will be able to use the form. But for example, well, actually I have both, I guess. I don't know if all faculty have both, though.
Not the new one.
So you just have to keep that in mind. If I restrict it to this, it will only allow people that have UNLV.edu accounts to complete it. And in fact, it will ask them if they haven't logged in already to record that. And one of the nice things about that is if I do that, I can actually collect their username as well. So I have information. I can be much more confident that the person who I wanted to fill out this form has filled it out because they had to go through the login process to actually complete it. Does that make sense? So you want to keep this, if you use this in a class and you want only students, they will all have a UNLV.nevada.edu account. You can do that and you can actually ask them to set it up so that, I guess they would have to log in if you restrict it to that. Most of the time you're just going to have it go to anyone. But again, once you do that, you get this other option where you can get their username, and then you can also require that they only submit once. So if you're doing a voting type of thing, they can't stuff the ballot box. Same with the anyone. So this one allows you to require it, but I'm not sure how that's going to work. They'll probably require them to log into a Google account to do that. So, you can do a customized confirmation page when they're all done. This is important to pay attention to. Do you want them to see the responses of others once they've submitted theirs? If it's a test or something, probably not. If it's a poll that maybe you want everybody to see as they go along, this is a good idea. And do they have the option to edit their response? And then progress bar, and then this is kind of nice for testing situations if you want to do a quiz of sorts, is you can actually shuffle the order, so not everybody's seeing the same exam. Okay, so there's our options, themes, and then let's take a look at what we have here. So it's time to distribute this. So we can send it via email. One of the nice things, these interfaces are really slick, but sometimes they kind of have some hidden options in there. It's not always clear how to come across things. So you don't see anything other than email initially, and that's because it's got this by default. But oftentimes you want to just have a link that you can send to somebody. So see how I changed from the email to the other option here. Copy this, and then we'll use that to go look at it in a moment. One more option you have is to embed this. Most of your websites, and if you use something like WordPress or even Google Sites, you can embed basically means you're going to paste in this HTML code into the page, and then the form will show up in your page that you've already developed, as opposed to sending them to a separate page. Most of the time, you can also distribute via Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. Okay, so most commonly we're going to use the link. This is kind of handy too. They'll use Google's shortener. I mean, obviously nobody's ever going to type in this, but it is possible to use a shortened URL. And I can show you how to use an even shorter URL, and then you can come up with a QR code like you find on on the sheet here that'll take somebody directly to it. So you want to post a form that you want people in the library randomly to use. You put this up on the board, and they just take their phone and they use the QR code reader. They click on it; it's automatically going to bring up the form for them. Okay, so I'm going to copy. One last thing before I go into the preview. That reminded me of, like I said, these can be kind of subtle. So notice each question has a few options. You can, of course, trash it. You can copy it. You can make it required or not required. But it's also got their little vertical ellipsis here, which Google's using a lot now for settings. So you have some additional options for each question. For example, if I don't want Roy G. Biv in that order, I can shuffle the question order so that it'll come up in a random order for people. You'll find that these restrictions are settings will be different for each particular question type. That was actually the same. Oh no, limit one per. You can also, let's see, if you have just a regular text field, you can actually have restrictions for it. So in other words, let's say this should only have a numeric entry. You're asking for a number of years or something, and they put in text. We can say we can require it be text or number. I've done a regular expression here that says I simply want to make sure there's an @ symbol so that I know they actually put in an email address in here. So I said regular expression, it must contain an @ symbol. And then what other additional options here? That's how, if I took the data validation off, that doesn't exist. So that was one of the options in here, is adding data validation to the question entry. Then to add a collaborator is right here. And this should be similar to what you've seen with Google Docs and Sites and the like. Right now, it's private only to me. I can invite. This is the great thing about being on the same domain name. I can pretty easily add Chinom in here. And get a message that says, help out with this. I don't want him touching my stuff, though, so I'm not going to leave that. So. He's a very questionable character. Good question. Anything else? Okay, what does this look like here? I should be able to control V now. Oh, that's strange. Oh, I know what I have. I have only one section initially. That's right. This is the actual one here. But I broke it. I forgot to mention this. If you add multiple sections, that's going to essentially multiple pages. So I only have this generic question initially here. I'm just going next, and we'll see the rest of our questions. I don't have any of them required, although, let's see, we have an email. That was on it. Okay, so I didn't like this. Oh. Did I change that one? This one was supposed to be the @ one, but I must have changed it to a number. Oh, no, maybe that was for this one. So notice it warned me. I didn't meet one of the validation requirements there. Okay, and this one was set up so you can see other responses. And this is really slick now. This is the results. The way they present the results is much better than it used to be with the old Google Forms. So you can see a real simple form for kind of the personal response systems, the clickers. I don't know if you ever had to use those in a class where you can ask questions and everybody has to respond. You get to see a poll. It takes a lot of setup, whereas you can do the same type of thing now with these Google Forms, especially when everybody has the pretty nice phone. They can actually go in and you can ask a question of your whole class and pretty quickly get a report of all their responses. Now, in addition to that, we have, let's see. I forgot where the results are here. I'm going to have to come back to that.
Is
Do you
it in a
remember?
spreadsheet?
Well, it does. There's a way. Oh, here it is. Responses again. They have this really elaborate interface now. There it is. Responses. So okay. So I can see my responses here in addition to that the full page. And over here, I'm going to have an option to look at the responses in sheets. And when you first develop one, there isn't. The link is different. It just says something like, "Do you want to actually open a sheet for this or create a Google Sheet?" So if you're not familiar with Google Sheets, this is just the Excel for Google Apps essentially. So now I have a spreadsheet version of all my data. And that was, again, I switched from the questions to responses here. We have additional settings in here. If you actually have a spreadsheet that you already want this to go into, already set up, you can designate that this way. You can also download the responses in a CSV file. That's a comma delimited file, so you can open that in Excel or anything like that. And I'm going to back up a little bit and kind of give you the secret sauce to Google, the reason Google became really what it was. And it was really one very simple idea that the Googlers, Sergey and Sergey and Larry came up with at Stanford many years ago. It was a really very simple idea, and it started with their search. Does anybody know why their search was so much better than everybody else's initially?
Page ranking.
PageRank. Yep, it's PageRank. And what does PageRank do? You remember?
How often a site is cited?
Exactly. So it's basically, it was really that simple. They, rather than doing what all the other search engines were doing, which was trying to just amass massive amounts of data, how much text was used in there, what meta words they were using, what sort of tags, these are tags within the HTML, did all this stuff, and people were gaming the system. Search was just kind of, blah. It was just frustrating, and you had to learn all these different operators and stuff. And they just had this one idea that said, no, you know what? The reason a page is important, a page is important if somebody else links to it. And it's even more important if the page that links to it is linked to by other things. So essentially kind of this little pyramid scheme comes out, and all of a sudden you find out that that's really what we're after. And in some ways there's a good corollary here with academic publications. If something kind of rises in import, we kind of brag about the number of citations, and I can show you in here how you can kind of track yourself and your people you're working with too, and seeing some of those things. But that's really the core idea, and that's one of the things that makes Google Scholar really great is it uses that same thing. Now it doesn't necessarily rank completely by citations, but you're going to find that those are going to be the higher ones, and as you move down. So for example, this one's 670 versus 292 up here. I really find it helpful, especially in my area, educational technology, to be able to restrict the dates. Oftentimes I want something that's a little bit newer. The idea of a smartphone today versus a smartphone 10 years ago, I don't think iPhones are 10 years old yet, are they? So that just changed the whole system. So what they're talking about for mobile learning 10 years ago is very different than what we are now. So I can restrict it to these. But then I find a lot of helpful things. Once I do find that kind of seminal article there that I've read and I feel is important, then looking at people that have actually cited that particular article I find really, really helpful. So you can do that by just clicking it, and you can actually extend the search even further to request specific things about these articles that are citing that original article. The other thing I find very handy on here is the citations. So here I can do, just clicking on cite, I'm going to have, we use APA in education. This is pretty good, but you don't throw away your APA manual just yet here. Oftentimes there's some things that are missing in here. Volume numbers is frequently an issue, and the formatting isn't perfect. But it's a great start, and it's a lot easier than doing everything from scratch. So, you can also notice you have, we have of course a RefWorks license here at UNLV, so everybody can get a RefWorks account. That's pretty powerful. Personally, I found this so slick that I've kind of wandered away from RefWorks a little bit. But you can import it into your RefWorks account, And if you do use RefWorks a lot, or EndNote, either one, you will want to go into the settings, and you're going to want to automatically show a RefWorks link in here. So anytime you're then logged in to your account, you're going to see, notice now that one of my options for each of the articles is to import into RefWorks. And this is going to ask me for my RefWorks account stuff, which I don't. I use LastPass for a password manager. Anybody use LastPass? You use a password manager? Nobody uses it. Oh my goodness. Yeah. What do you use?
The one built into Safari.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there's browser-based ones, but then there's also, well, yeah, you can also use Google too. If you're using Chrome, you can set up an account, actually tie your account to your browser to start populating the stuff. You're going to want to kind of get into that a little bit if you haven't already, because it's just, you have too many accounts. You already know that, right? And that little piece of paper that you keep in your wallet or your or under your sheet.
Do you have to pay to use that?
RefWorks you do not have to pay for. LastPass is my preferred password manager, and so I log into it each time in the browser, and it's going to auto-populate all of these things for me for my passwords. Very secure, but that's why I don't know this one, because I have to look on my password manager to use that. LastPass is also free. They have a premium version as well. Okay, back to Google Scholar. One of the things that's really become much more elaborate here is the profile. So, where was that at? Here we go. So you can search for a person now, and you can find their profile. And here's mine, with pictures even. For some reason I have two. I don't know how that happened, but this is younger me, older me. And it's going to show, this is just, let's pick one here. This is really slick, so you can see what articles you have. This is, if you're in education, the best thing for you to do is actually co-author something with Greg Schraw. That's your best mechanism for getting a highly ranked article. So you can see that's the thing that's been cited most. That was back in 2006. And pretty handy tool. You know, this is gives you ratings about how often things are cited, and you can actually go and see what's citing your own work. What else did I want to show you on that?
And you just put that in the general search box.
Yep. Yeah, it seems like, I think you can actually go to, there's a separate URL for it, but yeah, that works. And I think in each article you should be able to, now I want to get, so now it's got me into the profile version, so I'm not seeing how I would normally. I'll see now it's going within profile. So now I have to get back to Scholar, which I forget how to do that, but, or get back to the regular one.
Do you know about the geographic scope of what it's looking at? Is it global?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. In fact, there's, where was that at? There's somewhere in the settings where it will show you, where was that at? Oh, how did I get to that? Where you can actually go to regions. So let me see if I can. Sorry, they change the interfaces on these so often that I. Okay, so here's, this is nice. So this is looking at publications and you know, the ones that are most highly referenced, most highly cited in different areas. So this is just overall. The journal Nature is, of course, a huge one overall. But of course, most of the time you're going to want to restrict it to your own area. So I actually am in social sciences, and fortunately there's a subcategory in social sciences for educational technology.
And how did you get to that page again?
This was, from the front page you can get it here, but you can also see it when you're in the results. Over on the side here.
Okay.
So this is metrics. And this is one that gives you then at least the international journals. What was it? There was something else I wanted to show you. Any questions on Scholar?
Do you know if you can transfer your profile to like a personal Gmail account once you have it set up?
Well, I'm not sure why it, I think I do know. So before UNLV went to Google, I had made a Google account with my full unlv.edu. So that's why I'm showing up with 2 profiles there. But it allowed me to customize that. Let's see, how would I get back to that?
The
But you
reason
can-
I ask is because
I put in there.
you could only keep it for 2 years after
Oh.
your last course if you graduated. So if a student were to create a profile on the webmail account and they no longer have access, I don't know if there's a way to
Right.
transfer
Oh, I see what you're
it over.
saying. Yeah. So I think, let me see here.
Don't you have to use Outlook to do that?
Here we go. So it does allow you. So I'm in here and I can actually change my email address on here. Okay. So there's Google Scholar.
Okay, so back to the webmail page. So the webmail page, we have a bunch of resources for you to learn more about Google Apps. So let me just show you a couple of them. So if I want to learn more about, let's say, calendars, I can click on here, and we have just quick instructions here. These needs to be updated. Some of them are a little bit outdated, but for most part, it's pretty much the same way of doing things. So we also have a quick guide for each app. So if you click on that, it's just a one-pager front and back. If you look through it, it contains all of the main instructions that you need to know on how to manage your calendar and things like that. So we got one for each of those apps. So if I go into Drive, we have a quick guide for that as well. So I encourage you, print it out, read through it, take a look at it, and you'll learn more about Google Drive. Another one I want to point out is the calendars. So we listed the academic calendars here for you to subscribe. So you want to subscribe to the spring calendar to know important dates like when the fees are due, when final exams are. You just have to click on it. Your open calendar, it asks if you want to add it to your calendar. Just click yes, and there you are, the spring calendar is there. So we update those every semester if you're interested. The Graduate College also posted their calendar, so Graduate College of important events, they'll post that there too. If you look in the section under training tools, we listed 3 main training tools that we offer. First one is really neat. It's called lynda.com. I don't know if you guys.
I use it a lot.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Containing a huge library of video tutorials. So let me just show you real quick, give you a demo on that. So you click on that, and we have some pre-filled playlists for you already. So they have video on Office, Google, Adobe. I know some of you use SPSS. There's stuff on that too. So if I want to learn more about, let's say, Google Calendar, I just click on that. Sign in with your ACE account. And just click play. And there you go. And they do update it quite often, so all the information are pretty much up to date. And I take you through step by step. And you don't have to watch the entire video. You want to go into just a single section, you can do that. Like if I want to learn how to create all-day calendar, I can just click here. Tells you how long it is. Even give you a transcript as well if you don't want to if for some reason there's no volume, you can just follow along. And they have all kinds of unique video tutorials. So it's not just Google, it's not just IT related. They have stuff on education, how to create a resume, stuff like that. So how to play the guitar. So there's all kinds of different cool video tutorials. So I encourage you to try that out. That's available for all students, all faculty and staff as well. So that's lynda.com. Another one I want to point out is the Google support page. So we have a shortcut link here. And those are the instructions provided by Google. So if you want to learn more about, let's say, Google Drive, just click on that. And there are different sections here for you. Just click on it, and they have the instructions listed here. You can also get to it by just going into the gear icon and just click on Help. And of course, we got the IT help desk. So for any IT issue, just swing on by, give us a call, send us an email. We have 2 locations. We have one in CBC over there, right behind the elevator. We have one in the SU, right above Starbucks. So go get yourself some coffee, walk upstairs, and then, ask for help. And we open 365 days a year, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Okay, so that's the webmail page. So now I want to talk about how you can use Google to help you collaborate and work with your colleagues, your classmates, and groups. Because like I said earlier, Google Apps is really built from the ground up as a collaboration tool. So all the apps integrate really tightly with each other, and they all work really well. And like Dr. Hartley was showing you earlier, you can share your documents, you can share calendars, and then you can collaborate together on it. So I'm going to show you 3 main tools today. The first one is Google Groups. So to switch to it, the easiest way is just to sign into your Gmail account. Click on this Apps Launcher icon, looks like a little Rubik's Cube, and then click on Groups. So what's Google Groups? So the best way I can describe Google Groups is a combination of a mailing list with an online discussion forum. Why would you use a Google Group? Say you belong to a club or an organization and you have 50 members in there, right? So you want to share a document with those 50 people. One way to do it is just type in the email address individually, which you don't want to do that because you're not going to remember all 50 email addresses. Or you can create a personal contact group in Gmail and then select that contact group every time. But the problem is you won't be able to share that contact group with your colleagues, with your classmates. So any changes you make, it's not going to be reflected in the Gmail account. So by creating a Google group, it gives you a single email address that anyone who's a member can send to. So instead of having to memorize and know who the members are, they just got to know that single email address. And if they send an email to that email address, it gets delivered to everyone who's in that group. So let me show you a group that we use for my department, which is Client Services, which contains the help desk, myself, we got the web campus administrator, and other technical support specialists as well. So I'm going to click on Client Services. So this is what the Google Group web interface looks like. So,
question, Chair.
Mhm. Oh,
Quick
sorry.
question. On the group, does everybody has to have a Gmail or can be any kind of email address?
You can add external addresses, but if they want to access the web interface, they have to have a Google account. It doesn't have to be a webmail or UNLV email account. They can have a Gmail account, or they can just sign up for a Google account as well.
Like a Hotmail or something like that?
Yeah, you can use Hotmail. You can add a Hotmail account in there, and when you send a message to the group, that user will get it as well, but they won't be able to sign in to the web interface unless they sign up for a Google account using that address. Okay, so that's our Client Services Google Group site. So my boss, Deanna, if she wants to send an email to the group, we have an email address which is clientservices@unlv.edu. She just sends an email, and all the members in that group will get that email. And when you reply, it goes out to other members as well. One thing to keep in mind, though, you do need at least one person to manage the membership. So as people come and go, you need someone to add the new members and remove the old members. So if I click on the membership tab, it will show you we have 20 members in here. We're a pretty big group. We have 20 full-time employees. We have about 12 students, but we have a separate group for them. So let me show you how to actually create a Google group. Google Group is extremely easy. You just click on Create Group. So you just give it a name. So I can just say GPSA Demo. And it'll automatically populate an email address for you. And every time you create a Google group, it automatically adds this dash group at unlv.edu to the address. The reason why we added the dash group is we don't want, because we want to reserve the at unlv.edu for regular accounts. So that's why we added the dash group. So people can just create one called like mike.smith at unlv.edu and take up actual email addresses. So if I go down here, there are 4 different group types here. I'm just going to create one under email list because that's what most people are using it for. I'm not going to go through the other ones. You can take a look when you have a chance. But email list is just a basic mailing list. And then down here, you can see what kind of permissions. Choose what kind of permission you want to give the group. So for example, who can view topics? You can make it a public group, so that anyone with the URL can see what's posted here. In this case, I'm just going to choose all members, so I'm going to remove all organization members. So I want only people who are members of this group to be able to view the topic. Same thing with posting. I don't want anyone else except the members of this group. Who can join the group? If it's a public group, you can allow anyone to join the group, anyone in UNLV to join the group. And you can post that link somewhere, and they can click on it, and they can just click join. But in this case, I want only invited users. So I'm just going to select that. So once you're done, you click Create. And there you go. The group's created. So now, I'm just going to go ahead and add some members. So I'm going to click on Manage. I'm going to click on Direct Add. And I'm going to type in we'll do D student and E student. And just click Add. So now I have 2 new members in my Google group. So if I want to send a message to both members, I can just take this address here, put it in my webmail account, compose a new email, send it to this address, and both members will get it. And since they are active members, they can post to this group as well. And anything that gets posted will be automatically added to this online archive. The wonderful thing about this online archive is that instead of having to dig through your email to find certain messages sent to the group, you can just use the search up here, and all the messages that get sent to the group are automatically posted in this online discussion forum. So that's Google Group. Again, if you are part of a club, an organization with, I say, 15 or more members, I encourage you to create one. Now, if you're working on a group project where maybe just 2 or 3 other people in your group, you probably don't have to do that unless you want to keep an archive of all the conversations. So step 1, create a group. The next app I want to show you is Google Drive, which is by far my favorite app. So to switch to Drive, you click on the app launcher icon, click Drive. So what is Google Drive? The way I describe Google Drive is sort of 2 applications combined into one. One part of it is an online cloud storage. How many of you have used Dropbox before, or heard of Dropbox? A lot of you have heard of Dropbox. Which will allow you to upload files of any type onto the cloud. And then you can download it later somewhere else. So if you fly to Paris, as long as you have internet access to a computer and a web browser, you can download the file again somewhere else. The nice things about our Google Drive is that we have unlimited space, and you can upload a file up to 5 terabytes, so you don't ever have to worry about how much space you're using. So that's one part of it. The other part is Google Drive is a real-time collaboration platform. It's a combination of 3 applications. We got a word processing application called Docs, we got a spreadsheet application called Sheets, and a presentation application called Slides. So I'm going to show you how to create a brand new Google Doc, and I'm going to show you some collaboration features that it has. So to create a new doc is extremely easy. You just click on New, Google Docs. And since everything's web-based, you don't have to worry about updating the product. Everything's updated on the server once they push out new features. So if I want to start composing something, I just type it in. The wonderful thing is if you look up here, anything you type in there automatically save. You don't ever have to worry about losing your document. So if this computer crash and we can't retrieve the document inside our hard drive, that's okay because everything's still on the cloud. If I go back to my office, I can just jump right back onto this document. And it's not as full feature as Microsoft Word, so you're not going to get some of the advanced features. But for, I say 95% of what you need to do, writing a basic paper, for group projects, you got pretty much all you need here. If you just spend about 15 or 30 minutes looking through the menus and trying different things, there's not much to it. But it's got all the basic features. You can insert images, hyperlinks, you can create tables, things like that. Okay, so now I got started on this document. Now I will go ahead and share this document with someone else. So to share your document, you just click on the share button at the upper right-hand corner. You gotta give a name first. So GP as a demo. Save.
Can you share it with me too?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with Dr. Hartley. And you can choose what kind of permission you want to give them. There are 3 different types. You can give them editing access, which means they'll be able to go in there and do whatever they want with the document. They can delete what you've written before. They can add images, pictures. You're giving them full editing access. The other one is commenting access. That one's similar to track changes in Microsoft Word. So if I share this with Dr. Hartley and he want to make changes to what I've written, I have to approve it before it becomes permanent. And then viewing access will allow someone to view the document, print the document, make a copy, but they won't be able to make any changes. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it as can edit. Also, back to the Google Group stuff, you can also type in a Google Group address. So what do we call it? GP as a demo dash group. .au. If I want to put a note, I could do that. You probably want to check notify people, otherwise they won't get an email saying you've shared something with them. I'm click send. So now Dr. Hartley, he's on his Android, right, iPhone, Android device, and there's an app for iOS and Android device. He can download that, and he'll be able to, as soon as he get in here, we'll be able to collaborate together. So let me show you. I went ahead and signed into DStudent. So if I open that here, as you can see, it will tell you who's in this document with you. So I'm actually signed into 2 different accounts here. So on DStudent, if I start typing, you'll see the changes in real time. So if I switch back to, actually no. So any changes DStudent make, I can, since that full editing access, I can delete it if I want. So that's what editing access means. So you can have up to 50 people. You can share this document with up to 50 people and have them edit the document at the same time. That's probably not a good idea to have 50 people. But and another feature is the built-in chat. So if I want to chat with whoever's in the room, I could do that. So allow you to collaborate without being in the same place at the same time.
The commenting has got much better on this now too. So the
Yep.
comments are a little
Let me
more
show you
similar
that.
to what you get. That was one of the things that was a shortcoming in the past, was the commenting in Word was a lot more sophisticated. Now with the comments in here, you can
So you
have
can,
like a whole discussion around a section, and you can resolve it.
and then other people can reply to it. Once you're done, you hit resolve and it's gone. And you can see the stream of comments listed at the top. So
We've tried this, for your academic papers. It gets to be a bit of a challenging decision, because ultimately things end up in Word. You almost have to have it in Word for the final version. But it's so nice to be able to collaborate on this,
right.
and then we often do that. And then once we get to the end, closer to the end, we'll port it out to Word. But that doesn't always work perfectly either. So
Yeah, exactly. So
it kind of depends on which one you're working on.
Yeah, so as you were saying, so what I recommend is initially create the document in Google Docs or Google Spreadsheet, whatever. Send it out to whoever you need to help you edit the document. Do it here. Once you're done, you can export it as a Microsoft Office format. So if I go to File, Download As, Microsoft Word, save it. So now I have this document in the Microsoft Word format. So if my instructor requires me to turn that in Word format, I can do that now. But keep in mind, if you have a lot of charts and images and things like that, and when it's converting it, it might not look perfect. So you do want to double check the Word document and make changes if needed, formatting, whatever. Make sure it looks nice before you turn it in. What you don't want to do is export it as a Word document, import it again back to Docs, export it back to Word. So you want to do everything in Docs, other collaboration, and then export it as a Word document, and then just make it look nice, and then turn it in. So that's Google Doc. The last one I want to show you is Google Sites. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Gmail.
Am I the only one that's concerned about the size of your inbox? 2,072 messages?
That's a lot. And this is not my real one.
I'm
This is
gonna
just a
teach you how
test
to use-
account too.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's a demo
no,
account.
The
Okay.
one my actual one is a lot larger than that. But you do have unlimited space, so don't worry about that.
Not cognitive space, though.
Right.
Cognitive space.
Sure. They're really powerful search engines, so I use that. The last one is Google Sites, so just click on the Apps Launcher, click on Sites. So what is Google Sites? Google Sites allow you to create a website without having to know HTML. But more importantly than that, I think Google Sites is a good way to bring all the Google apps together into one page. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I click on our client services team site, so this is our team site. We have announcement listed here. We have an announcement page. We have a page for share documents. We have a page for people can type their meeting minutes. We have shortcuts to things like lynda.com. So if you're part of a club, organization, or maybe just working on a project, you can create a Google site to centralize all of the Google apps and bring them into a single website. And let me just show you real quickly how to do that. So to create site, just go to the home page, click Create, and just give it a name. So I'm going to say GPSA Demo. And you can use templates if you want. There's some published by the public. They're usually not very good. If there's one you like that you want to share with the rest of the campus, you can publish yours. So we have a couple created for OIT. And then you can select a theme if you want. So in this case, I'm just going to pick Sky. And just click Create. So here I have a Google site. So what can I do with Google site? Like I was telling earlier, you can bring in all of your Google apps into this site. So members of your group can just go to the site and see everything they need. To do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit. And in the Insert menu, as you can see, you can add all these Google gadgets here. So if I have a calendar for GPSA, I can select it. You can change the size if you want. Let's make it a little bit smaller, 300. Save. Once I save it, there's the calendar there. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if you're sharing, whether it be a calendar, a doc, or a Google group, you want to make sure they also have access, the visitors also have access to the calendar, to the drive, to the group as well. Because if they don't, they're not going to be able to see the contents here. So just because you added a calendar to a Google site doesn't mean people visiting the site will automatically inherit the permission to be able to view those contents. Another thing I can do is if I want to add a Google Drive folder, Drive folder. So let's say I have a folder called Meeting Minutes. I can select that. So now if I save, there you go. It actually shows you the Google Drive folder with Meeting Minutes. If I click on this budget report, it'll open up itself. So instead of having the visitor go into the Google Drive and access this Meeting Minutes report, you can just post it on the website. One last one I want to show you is the Google Group. So if I switch back to the group that I created earlier, and I paste that URL here, so it shows you the online discussion forum within the group. So instead of having the members of your group having to check their calendar, Google Drive, and Google Group separately, you can just put them all on a single page. So again, creating project, what I recommend, and at least this is what we do in OIT. Every time we create a new project, first thing we do is we create a Google Group for it, add the members, and then we usually create a share folder in Google Drive so people can upload contents to that folder and everyone will be able to access it. And the last thing is we create a project site. We have calendars here with deadlines, due date. We post the shared documents listed here, and then we also post the Google Group contents. So it brings everything together into one central site so people can just go to this page and they won't have to jump around to different apps. So.
And you said for this access you have to have the Gmail account, right? They have to.
Well, they don't. What you can do is you can click share. If you want to make this website public so that anyone can access it, you can do that. So if I click on public on the web, I can just share this URL with anybody and they'll be able to access this web page. But one thing to keep in mind again is if you make your website public, you want to make this calendar public as well. You want to make this folder public as well. You want to make this Google Group public as well. Because if you don't, if they visit this web page, they're not going to be able to see the content. So that's Google Sites. I mean, there are other apps as well for collaboration. Those are the three main ones. We have two called Lucidchart and Lucidpress. Lucidchart is sort of like Visio online, lets you create diagrams and org chart and things like that. And it's just like Google Drive in that you can create
infographic stuff
Yeah,
like
you
that?
can. Yeah, you can create graphic stuff. If you're an engineer, you can create process chart and you know, like that, step 1, step 2. So it's really neat.
Is it like a card? It's like a stock card? No.
Huh?
Is that like a stock card? Like for an app? Oh no. The flow chart. Okay.
Oh
so-
yeah, you can create flowchart. Yes, definitely. Yep. I think they have one called. Yeah, so you want to add like an Angry Bird here. You can. I just found that the other day. It's pretty neat. So that's Lucidchart. Lucid Press. We launched that last year. It's brand new. I don't know how many of you have used Adobe InDesign. It is similar to that. You can create a newsletter, posters.
Does this only access through UNLV?
Yes, yep. webmail, UNLV mail both have as long as you have that account, you have access to it.
You can probably add it to a personal one too, but it may cost you.
Yeah, they'll cost you. We get it for free, so. And they have templates as well, so you can do all kinds of neat things. I don't have an example, but you can add shapes and buttons. So if you're creating a flyer for a club, you can certainly use Lucid Press for that. So, yeah. So that's all I have for my portion.